you think of the worst franchise in sports, what do you think of? Maybe it's your favorite team. Maybe it's the Jets. In any case, we're going to get to the bottom of that question today. Who is the worst franchise this century? We're going to look at the 4 major sports leagues, couple rules off the bat. No team that has won a championship is eligible to be considered. That's kind of an obvious one. Another rule is if you have reached the championship, you will not be considered. There might be a couple exceptions to that rule in this list though. And lastly, if you've made the playoffs more times than you haven't, you're obviously not going to be on this list. We're talking about the worst franchise in sports. We're talking about the worst team to be a fan of since the year 2000. Starting off at number 10, we have the New Orleans Pelicans. First off, this team is the stupidest team name in sports. I don't care how they came to be called the Pelicans, it immediately makes them unserious. And unserious is a good way to describe this franchise. Ever since relocating from Charlotte in 2002, this team has found creative ways to squander their talent. With just 9 playoff appearances since 2000, and all but 2 of them ending in first-round exits, this franchise earns its spot in the bottom 10. This team has employed for the majority of their prime 2 first-ballot Hall of Famers, Chris Paul and Anthony Davis. Both ended up being sent to Los Angeles in blockbuster deals. The franchise also has found a way to make Zion Williamson not want to play basketball. This guy was the most hyped prospect since LeBron. He'd rather hang out at fast food restaurants than the Pelicans training facility. I think this is an easy pick at number 10. Coming in next, we have the Colorado Rockies at number 9. This team is basically baseball's version of a trust fund baby. They were born with the most unique home field advantage in sports, Coors Field, but somehow turned that into a lifetime of mediocrity. The Rockies have been in the league for over 30 years and have never won a division title. Let me say that again, 0 division titles. Every other MLB team has at least one. I almost didn't include them because according to my rules, making a championship this century disqualifies a team. But I had to, because since 2000, they've made the playoffs just 4 times. Only one of those times wasn't an immediate exit, being a 2007 loss in the World Series, getting swept by the Red Sox. Let's not forget their front office is basically allergic to competence. They traded away Nolan Arenado, arguably the best player in their franchise's history, and included $50 million just to make him go away. The Rockies are basically what happens when a team decides it's easier to sell tickets than win games. Let's lock them in at number 9. At number 8, we've got the Buffalo Sabres. This team is basically the NHL's definition of pain. They haven't made the playoffs since 2011. That's 13 straight seasons of irrelevance. It's the longest active drought in the NHL, and it's not even close. They've changed general managers, head coaches, jerseys, even ownership groups, and they still can't figure out how to build a competent hockey team. They drafted Jack Eichel, a generational talent, somehow turned that into a bitter divorce, a public feud, and a rebuild of the rebuild. They've had top 10 picks in 13 of the last 14 NHL drafts. You'd think they were running a youth hockey camp, not an NHL team at this point. Sabre fans are loyal to a fault, but this franchise has given them nothing to cheer for in over a decade. They went from hockey heaven to hockey hell, and that's why they're a lock for this 8th spot. At number 7, we have the Las Vegas, formerly Oakland Raiders, formerly decent at football. This team has had more zip codes than playoff wins since 2000. Think about that. 4 playoff appearances in 25 years. For a franchise that loves to call itself iconic, they've been nothing more than a walking punchline since the Rich Gannon era. With no shortage of controversies such as John Gruden's racist email scandal, Antonio Pierce getting 1 season before getting canned, and Mark Davis just consistently making baffling decisions, this team was never the face of the NFL, despite what their fans might think. Let's not forget that the Henry Ruggs tragedy, the Damon Arnett fiasco, they even tried to turn Tom Brady into a budget executive, and this team just continually makes decisions that don't line up with winning. They also gave away Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper for basically nothing and spent years pretending Derek Carr was an elite quarterback. There's been no consistent vision, no winning culture, and just being in Vegas doesn't make them cool enough to just keep losing games year in and year out. It's another team that breaks the whole no championship appearance rule, but that's because it's been so damn brutal since their 2003 Super Bowl trip that they've earned this spot. It's an easy choice at number 7. Sliding in at number 6, we've got the Washington Wizards, or as some fans call them, the Washington Mid. This team has been stuck in basketball purgatory for over 2 decades, never quite bad enough to tank, never good enough to matter. You know, they've actually made 8 playoff trips since 2000. Not that bad, right? Yet they've only made it past the first round in 1 out of those 8 appearances. That's the peak of 20 years of work here. 1 second-round appearance. They drafted John Wall and paired him with Bradley Beal, 2 good picks, but they gave out some of the worst contracts in league history, including to both of those players, and they still couldn't crack 50 wins in a season. This team has actually been rebuilding rebuilding since 1979, which, by the way, is the last time they made a conference finals. Their biggest accomplishment in this period was signing Michael Jordan to spend his final days in the league as some sort of player, GM, coach hybrid. Their front office goes back and forth between trading for washed-up stars and drafting complete question marks. I mean, look back at Jan Vesley, Kwame Brown, even recently Johnny Davis as some pretty brutal lottery selections that doesn't seem like a team intent on winning or developing their players. The Wizards are basically a permanent placeholder team. We can lock them in at number 6. And sticking with the city of Washington, D.C., let's talk about the Commanders. This franchise is basically the case study for NFL dysfunction. Since 2000, they've made the playoffs just 6 times and won only 3 games, 2 of those coming last season under phenom Jaden Daniels in his rookie year. That's it. 2 decades of chaos. Their biggest accomplishment is changing their name twice. They went from the Redskins to the football team to the Commanders and still managed to be just as irrelevant with each identity. For most of this stretch, they were owned by Dan Snyder, arguably the worst owner in American sports history. This team plagued by workplace scandals, league investigations, and lawsuits. This culture was so toxic the NFL even had to step in and fine them millions of dollars, just basically for doing things the way they do them. They've had over a dozen starting quarterbacks, a ton of head coaches, and 0 signs of long-term direction until now. Give Jaden Daniels a few years and he'll certainly get this team out of this list, but right now they're a clear lock at 5. DC is a swamp and they've gotten what they deserve from the Commanders and Wizards this century. It's time to make Washington sports great again. At number 4, it's not going to shock anyone here. If anything, you guys have been waiting for where is this team on this list. It's the Cleveland Browns. It's football's ultimate cautionary tale. They returned to the NFL in 1999 and they've basically been teaching us how to fail since then. Since 2000, they've made the playoffs just 3 times and only have 1 playoff win, thanks to Baker Mayfield. Their win percentage is the lowest in the NFL over that span, hovering around 30%. That's expansion team level bad. In 2016, this team won 1 game. They went 1-15, and they followed that up with a miraculous 0-16 season in 2017. Somehow, they convinced themselves they were on the right track despite the 2 worst seasons, arguably in NFL history. They've started 31 different quarterbacks, cue the jersey, since 1999. From Tim Couch to Johnny Manziel to Deshaun Kaiser to whatever's left of Deshaun Watson, it's been a rotating door of regret in Cleveland. And speaking of Watson, the Browns gave him $230 million guaranteed while he was facing over 20 civil lawsuits. This is the first time a quarterback has ever gotten a fully guaranteed contract at that amount in the league's history, and they decided Watson was the guy for that. That isn't just bad PR, that is probably the worst trade in NFL history. The front office has changed a dozen times, they've fired more coaches than they've won divisional games, and their most consistent presence might be the sadness of their fan base. They're less of a football team and more of a tragic football experiment. The Baker years were fun though. No doubt they're a lock at number 4 and might have an argument to be higher on this list. At number 3, we've got the Columbus Blue Jackets. If the NFL had a create a team mode and you clicked randomize, you'd get the Blue Jackets. Since entering the league in 2000, they've become the most forgettable franchise in hockey, and not in a charming way. They've made the playoffs just 6 times in 24 seasons, with only 1 playoff series victory, a shocking sweep over Tampa Bay in 2019 that felt more like a fluke. After that, right back to irrelevance. They've never made the conference finals, they've never had true franchise cornerstones stick around, and every time they build something halfway promising, it falls apart. Rick Nash left. Artemi Panarin left. Pierre-Luc Dubois demanded a trade. Nobody wants to stay in Columbus. Coaching changes, front office resets, and basically fan apathy have defined this team's entire existence. They're the NHL's answer to the Sacramento Kings, but without the chaos or the charm. The Blue Jackets are hockey's eternal expansion team and a no-brainer in the top 3 here at number 3. Coming in at number 2, it's the Pittsburgh Pirates. This team has been around since the 1800s and somehow has less direction now than they did during the Civil War. Seriously though, since 2000 they've made the playoffs just 3 times, all of those coming in a 3-year window in 2013 to 2015, and that ended as quickly as it started. Outside of that brief flicker of hope, it's been straight losing. From 1993 to 2012, the Pirates put together 20 consecutive losing seasons, a record in American pro sports. That's 2 decades of being eliminated by July. They've had legit stars, Andrew McCutchen, Garrett Cole, Starling Mart, but as soon as they got expensive or good, the Pirates shipped them out for pennies. This team treats payroll like a luxury tax is a death sentence. And don't even get started on their ownership. Bob Nutting has turned tanking into a lifestyle brand. The team is ranked near the bottom in payroll for years, and fans show up more for cheap beer nights than the actual product on the field. They're basically proof that tradition means nothing without competence, and have been a ghost ship for most of the 21st century. Easy choice at 2, but that begs the question, who is the worst sports franchise this century? Who is the #1 worst team in sports? It pains me to say this, but the worst franchise in modern sports is my own favorite team, the Charlotte Hornets. Guys, I'm not just picking them to be funny or edgy. I'm picking them because I've lived this nightmare. I've been here through the Bobcats era, through name changes, lottery heartbreaks, washed vets, fake rebuilds, giving Gordon Hayward $120 million when he's 32. You name it. Let me take you back to 2011 for a second. That was the worst season by win percentage in NBA history. In a lockout-shortened year, the Bobcats went 7-59. Yes, worse than any process-era Sixers team. Worse than any expansion franchise. Just 7 wins. Guys, I was in the building for 2 of those. I remember thinking, hey, maybe we're turning a corner. We weren't. We were just lucky to be playing the Wizards and Raptors those nights. Since 2000, this team has made the playoffs just 3 times. You know how many playoff series they've won? 0, not 1. They've not even been to the second round in over 2 decades, not a single banner, not a single moment where you thought this could be it. Our biggest win since 2000 has literally just been getting the Charlotte Hornets name back for the franchise. We've drafted Adam Morrison, Frank Kaminsky, Noah Vonleh, DJ Augustine. Every time we're in the lottery, we find a way to find a guy who doesn't belong in this league or maxes out as a backup. We passed on Giannis to take Cody Zeller. We passed on Jamal Murray to take Malik Monk. It's not hindsight when every fan knew it was a bad pick in real time. Even when we finally got a star in LaMelo Ball, he's been stuck on a treadmill of injuries and new coaches. We've got the Miles Bridges situation. We've got Michael Jordan's front office refusing to spend money. We were too good to get Wembanyama, but too bad to matter. And honestly, at this point, I'm convinced the NBA doesn't want the Hornets to succeed. The Hornets have finished second in every generational draft this century. In 2012, the Hornets tanked their souls for Anthony Davis. Ended up with number 2, drafting Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, who, as we all know, solid player, terrible draft pick. In 2023, the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes. Everyone's locked in, everyone's there to be the next team to draft a generational superstar. What do the Hornets get? They come in second behind and get Brandon Miller, good player. But San Antonio cashes in on a decade of karma, and for some reason the league has to give the Spurs the next foreign-born generational big. And even just recently, after a 19-win season, we landed 4th in the Cooper Flag lottery. Even that slipped through our hands, just to watch the Mavericks get the handout of the century from Adam Silver after that ludicrous Luka Doncic trade. It's like the basketball gods basically have the Hornets on Do Not Disturb. They've suffered, they've tanked, they've waited, nothing ever happens. As a diehard fan, I wish I didn't have to say this, but the choice is clear. The Charlotte Hornets are the worst franchise in sports since 2000. I've earned the right to put them at #1, and that is where they belong. And that does it for this video, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in to this worst franchise in sports since the turn of the century video from Verse Fantasy. If you want more content like this and other videos, check out our page here. Make sure to like and subscribe. Also follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Verse Fantasy on all platforms. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. See you next time.